everybody, this is the Sliders Review. I'm here today to talk to you about a very tremendous show that came back in the 90s on the Fox channel called Sliders. Sliders was a very unique and creative show. It was a show like no other at its time. It was a sci-fi drama show. The concept came from two men, Tracy Torme and Robert Wise. See, when Tracy was in, I think he was in like a doctor's office one day, he read a magazine, and the magazine said something about what if George Washington would have died during the war? You know, how would America look? He wouldn't have been our first president. That got him thinking. After time working on Star Trek, because he's the one who wrote all those Dixon Hill and those like old, like that one episode where Worf, Data, Troy, not Troy, okay, Worf, Data, yeah, it was Troy also, Worf, Data, and Riker, LaForge, they was on that one episode where it was kind of like, I forgot what it was called. It might have been called A Big Goodbye or something like that. It was like that old school, like Dick Tracy type episode where somebody had like died in a hotel, and I think like a human had like a book about that old school stuff, and then they went onto this alien world, and then when that person died, the aliens read the book, was intrigued by it, and based their whole world off the premise of that book. And he also wrote like all the Dixon Hill episodes, and he was able to throw in that Dixon Hill reference in Star Trek First Contact. So he worked with them, and he worked closely with Gene Roddenberry. And it was one of Brian Braga. He came up with the concept of doing a parallel dimensions multiverse episode in season 7, and then of course once that ended, it started getting other people interested in the multiverse, because before then a lot of people never really explored it in sci-fi. It was mostly just time travel and space travel when it comes to sci-fi stuff. So he had this idea, and him and Robert went to Fox and they pitched the idea, and Fox loved it, and they made like a 9-episode first season run. However, being Fox, they kind of wanted to dip their toes in stuff way too much, and they kept trying to change the premise of what the show was supposed to be about. These two guys tried their best to stick to their convictions and everything, but unfortunately Fox would end up winning and end up making the show very bizarre in the 3rd season. And in the first 2 seasons, they will play episodes out of order. Now, the show Sliders deal with the multiverse. And it has a group of people who travel the multiverse through a little device called a timer, where they open it, a portal opens up, and they go through a tunnel, and they slide to a different dimension, where Earth could be either exactly like theirs, just like a hair off, or it could be like a little different, mildly different, or hugely different. So different to where Russia could rule the United States, Afghanistan could rule the United States, Germany could rule the United States, Britain, you know, stuff like that. Or it could be where America rules America. However, things are very different, to where they have a lottery system, to where there are so many people on the earth and they're running out of resources. So what they do is they have a lottery. And in that lottery, if you win, you'll get like this little like golden card where you can have whatever you want. But the downside of it is you have to commit suicide. And when you do, all of your wealth that you accumulated through this period in time goes to your family. And there are those that oppose it, but for the most part, everybody on that earth is for it, because they see it as a way of helping the next generation out because, like I said, that Earth has so many few resources. Now, these group of people that slid, the person who created the sliding technology is a young college student by the name of Quinn Mallory. Quinn Mallory is this tall, lovable goofball of a dork. He is a super genius. He has a mother. He doesn't have no sister. He used to have a dog, and he used to have a father, but his father died. And so he still lives with his mom, and he's about somewhere in his somewhere in his early 20s, because he's only in college. And so he was trying to create an anti-grav unit device, but then somehow he got the idea of creating the multiverse. So he worked hard trying to build his timing device. And he, okay, so he does succeed. And he does travel to another world. And when he travels to another world, he noticed that a couple of things are off. Elvis is still alive. The traffic lights are different. You drive on red, you stop on green, stuff like that. And his mom was pregnant by the handyman. Could you imagine seeing that? Like, seriously, like, you know how furious you would be. And so then he slid back home. See, here's the thing about the timer. The timer has its own set of rules. The timer in the first 2 seasons and the first half of the third season resembled that of an old Motorola cell phone. God, I wish I had this thing so bad. You don't know. There's like a dude on eBay who has the inside components that makes it like flash and the numbers count down and stuff, but he won't build the outer case. I guess he wants you to build your own. But you know how hard it is to find a cell phone like that? I mean, it's 2021, man. Just like build the casing yourself and then just sell it on eBay. Anyway, so like the timer, it's this little handheld device, and you can only activate it when the numbers count down on the timer. If you activate it before the numbers count down, before it reaches 0, you're screwed. Basically what it does is this: it erases your home coordinates so you can't find your way back home, and it makes it like 10 times more harder for you to try to make your way back home. Basically, your system is corrupted and you're just traveling the multiverse. Now, Quinn is aided by his friend. His friend that he has a bit of a crush on. She has a bit of a crush on him too. Wade Wells, which is one of the most unique names I've ever heard. And people make reference to that throughout the entire series. She works with him at the computer store. And she's very, very, very good at computers. She's kind, she's sweet. She has a spiritual side to her, a philosophy side to her. She believes in magic, and that's kind of really the only things we really know about her, other than she have a sister, a father, and a mother. And I believe her mother died at childbirth or something like that. And so we have another person on this group, Professor Maximilian Arturo. He is the professor at Quinn's college and teaches him stuff. He's very grumpy, very rude. He is bitter towards Quinn because Quinn is smarter than him, but the professor is smart in his own right. And he ends up saving the day throughout the entire the third season. Until sadly, something happens. And so the professor, he does have a nice side to him, but the professor is kind of, I like to think of him kind of like a survivalist. He, in a very like Star Trek kind of way, kind of dude. He's all about that prime directive. He doesn't feel like interfering in other people's worlds. He just thinks of himself as a tourist. He doesn't want to change their outlook unless it suits him. Like in this one episode in the first season, where women control the world and not men, and men are not allowed to vote. They're not allowed to run for office or anything like that. And so, no, wait, they are allowed to vote. That is true. They are allowed to vote. They're just not allowed to run for office. And men have to stay stuck to raising the kids and being in the kitchen. The professor doesn't really like this world. He doesn't like the fact that people look down on him when he tells them he has a degree and that they don't want him to get a high paying job because he's only a man. Well, these men, they get the idea in his head he should run for mayor. And so he does, even though he's all about not changing the outcome of the world. And so he does his whole campaign, and very badly, by the way, because he's the professor. But he ends up winning and not knowing it when he slides. And the last person of the group is the crime man himself, Rembrandt Brown. See, Rembrandt doesn't know none of these people whatsoever. Rembrandt is a former singer who's trying to have a comeback. He was with this group called the Spinning Tops back in like the old days, and they were very, very, very successful. But he had the idea of going solo, like so many other people have in their group. And and when he did that, people wasn't feeling him. He had one good single, and that's about it. And after that, fans just said, "Screw you, we want the Spinning Tops," but he didn't want to be back with the Spinning Tops. And he couldn't get back with them because of how bad he burnt their bridges and stuff. So when we see him, he is desperately trying to have a comeback. Well, he's supposed to sing at the national anthem at a baseball game. And the dude still dresses like he's back in like the 70s. And so he's just driving around in his Cadillac, a very nice car, by the way. Like the dude was so blessed to drive that car. And so he's driving around, and in this pilot episode, the professor and Wade, they're with Quinn, they're about to slide. And so Wade has, for the most part, yeah, a good idea, but it ended up backfiring. She wanted to know, was the sliding portal big enough for them to all fit? Because it was a relative, not too small, not as small as it was in season 4, but she was just curious because, would they all be able to fit in this thing? Quinn doesn't really know, even though he slid through the thing. So he decides he's going to increase the power. When he does that, the vortex expands very bigly, and it leaves his house and it goes out in the street. And as Rembrandt is driving, he gets sucked into the vortex. He is beyond freaked out. He wants to go home, and his life is, for the most part, not necessarily ruined because he didn't have much of a life on his world, but it's just it's not the life he wanted, And he's this very goofy character in the first season. The man is there for comedic relief. He is a kind, sweet man, but he has lived a life different from that of the Sliders, where when he sees worlds that are people being oppressed, he can't help but to feel bad for them, whereas somebody like Quinn doesn't really see oppression and stuff. Now, one problem I had with Rembrandt in the first season was every time they would slide to a different world, he would just straight up abandon them and go live his life and party. I mean, I get it and everything, but it's just it was kind of selfish of him. But by the second season, he does come around more, and he is part of the team full time. And the man has a singing voice that is so heavenly. There's an episode called "The King is Back." One of my favorite episodes when him and his twin brother playing his double gets to sing. Speaking of which, doubles. Doubles is a great concept of this show. I'm really glad that they really were committed in this show, full steam. It's just if you go to the multiverse, of course you're gonna run into people that look like you. And it's so great that they do this all the time. And when they meet their doubles are so different from who they are. Some of their doubles are like evil people. Some of their doubles are like dorks with no spine. Some of their doubles are like just kind-hearted people, scientists, crooks, thieves, scientists, like you name it. And it's really cool to see these people play themselves, but differently, and to really like give like a really good range of acting. And I mean, my God, some of these doubles, man, are more intriguing than the actual characters themselves. Now, there is one double in particular. People like to refer to him as the Bad Quinn. Now, in season 1, in the pilot, when Quinn slid to that world, he slid without solving the equation to sliding. He couldn't figure out the last piece of the pie, the last piece of the puzzle, if you will. And so when he left to go to school, he noticed something. The professor was pissed off, angry at him, and he couldn't understand why. The professor said something about like he outsmarted, not necessarily outsmarted him, he insulted him, he embarrassed him, and he thinks he's smarter than him. And he basically tells Quinn just to like get out of the classroom. And Quinn doesn't know what is going on, so Quinn goes to work after that. And then, ooh, man, Quinn's boss is pissed off at him. And Quinn just literally doesn't understand what happened, because Quinn literally went to the other world for a couple of minutes and came back. And now everybody hates him and stuff. And Wade, she's all lovey-dovey in love with him because apparently those two kiss. And he's a little mortified by that, which pisses her off because he's all like, I don't think of you that way. I think of you like as a little buddy, like a little sister. And she was mad. So he goes home and he doesn't understand like what is going on. And so when he comes home down in his basement, he sees that his equation has been solved with a big old smiley face. And when he turns around, boom, there is his other self, his duplicate, his double from a parallel dimension. Now, the double, people call him the bad one only because like he upset so many people in the pilot. We don't get to see him upset people, but we hear about it. And I like that. Like normally it's best to show and not tell, but in this case it's best to tell and not show. And so he tells Quinn that, like, I'm surprised, you slid without solving that equation and everything. And he tells Quinn, you're gonna love sliding, man. It's great. And he tells him all the worlds he's been on, all the good worlds. But then you see like a sad look on his face. But he doesn't explain what happened on that world, but something happened to let the viewers know that not everything's going to be good for these people, And so he's a married dude. But when he slides, it's interesting. He doesn't have his timer on him. And then he's trying to tell Quinn some important news, but the vortex opens up behind him. And so as he's trying to shout, he can't get his words out. And then next thing you know, he gets sucked into the vortex. Now, this is the thing about the vortex. The vortex, it is supposed to open up only when you have a timer. It's like this pool of like wavy distortion matter, and it makes like your background kind of like wavy and stuff. In the first season, it would kind of like shrink a little bit, like the air, take an area of space. First, it would shrink it, then it would expand it. And then it'd be like all wavy and stuff. I love the first season Vortex. Anyway, so you can only open it with the timer. You can only open it when your numbers count down. But you can, like I said before, open it before your numbers count down. But you'll get screwed. Now, if you do not activate it before your time is up, then the portal will automatically open itself up very near you. Mainly sometimes like behind you and stuff. But once you corrupt that data, and you don't even need the timer to activate it. Like if your data is not corrupted, when you're on the other world, you don't even need your timer to activate it. And so it will literally just like suck you in, like pull you in and stuff. Now, once your data is corrupted, then you have to use the timer to activate it every time, and it doesn't suck you in no more. How exactly did the professor get himself involved, you're asking yourself? Well, it's simple. After Bad Quinn pissed everybody off, the next day, Wade and the professor decided to visit Quinn. Now, the professor has never met Wade before, but Wade knows all about him because Quinn constantly talks about the dude. Because Quinn really loves the professor. He's like one of the smartest men that he knows. And he's always boasting about him at work. And so this makes the professor happy. So where he's not as pissed off as he normally is. So then they go down in the basement and Quinn's all like, I got a surprise for y'all. Professor and Wade are like, oh my God, dude. Like the look on their faces. Wade thinks she's in the Batcave. The professor is just blown away. And he tells him about sliding and how fun it was. And Wade's all like, well, can we go? And he's like, sure. And then the professor's all like, you know, we shouldn't like do this and everything. Like we haven't tested this thing out. There could be like some very bad side effects, all this other stuff. And Wade's all like, but you know, Quinn slid and he's fine and his double slid about a dozen times, so it should be like totally cool. And so like, you know, Wade and like Quinn are like, you know, we're in. And the professor's all like, crap. Well, he's like, all right, fine, I'll go to babysit y'all, but I'll also go for like scientific curiosity and everything. And so like, then that's how he gets involved in all this. Now the professor, his whole scientific curiosity, the professor is beyond bitter that Quinn discovered sliding before he ever could. And we see this throughout the entire series. And we also see a little bit of shadiness, even with our professor. And it's kind of almost like the professor really wants sliding for himself, or he wants to be like partners with it. Now, the first season is very comedic. Like, my God, it is very, 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 very comedic. But it's good comedy. Sometimes they can go a little overboard, but it's really funny. But this show is like a drama, like I said before. It's more drama than it is sci-fi. Some of the worlds that they go on in the episodes are phenomenal. Like, it's only 9 episodes. And like, one of the first worlds they go to in the pilot is a world where like Earth is freezing over. It's like some type of atomic winter. And so they're like freezing to death, and they go inside like the house and they see like Quinn notices that on this world he has a sister. But when I say the world is nearly just frozen over, like it is frozen over. And so they talk about this situation and how dire it is, and then they meet Rembrandt. And when they meet Rembrandt, he is freaking out. He wants to go home and all this other stuff. And so they can't wait for the timer to count down to 0 because they have to go, because a huge, like, kind of like a blizzard tornado looking thing was coming towards them. And it was really going to jack them up. So they basically tell Quinn, like, look, man, you got to activate this timer now. Like, there's no other way because they're not going to be able to survive this. And even if the tornado thing wasn't coming, they still wouldn't be able to survive it. So he activates the timer early. And one thing that was cool about the pilot, when they activate a timer and the portal will open up, it would be in so many different locations. Sometimes it'd be on the ground. Sometimes it'd be like in the sky. Sometimes it would be like beside them and stuff. So they slide and everything. And Quinn is the last one to slide. And it looks like he's not going to make it because he falls back into the car. And so when the others on the other Earth, they're like terrified. They're worried. They're worried, especially Wade, man. She's just like praying and stuff. And he finally slides and she's crying. And he didn't understand why she's crying. And of course, she gets like pissed off, emotional at him because he doesn't understand that she likes him. And so they're back on Earth. but they think they're back on their Earth. And so, like, Rembrandt is still trying to catch the baseball game so he can sing. He catches a cab. The other ones, they start walking around and they start to see their first glimpse of them not being on Earth. They see a Russian statue in America and they're like, crap, dude. So they realize now they're not home. And what makes things worse is that Rembrandt is no longer with them because he's at the baseball game. And so they're trying to like figure out the situation, and when it gets to nighttime, they start to see just how bad this earth is. It's run by Russia, and this was the 90s, when for the most part the Cold War had ended by like sometime in the 80s, I believe it was. And in the 90s, everything for the most part between Russia and America was copacetic, I guess you could say. And so it's kind of like, it was like, hey, look, you leave us alone, we'll leave you alone, and we won't have to nuke each other. And so, like, but things were still bad because, people, we were both like spying on one another and stuff. And so, because the other countries just didn't trust themselves. So anyway, in this world, it's nighttime. And so they're trying to figure out a way, how long they have to slide and this and that. They realized that because they activated the timer early, it corrupted their system. And now they're just traveling throughout the multiverse. They have no idea how many Earths there are, but, they're optimistic and thinking there's only a few. And as Wade, she got in trouble with the phone company because she tried to use their payphone and she didn't have something, she didn't do something like as it sell, didn't have the proper money or something like that. Something had happened where the operator got mad at her and was looking for her. And somehow they found Wade. And this is before all this great GPS technology and smartphone stuff. So how they found her, I have no idea. But then as they're like wandering the streets, they meet this man who helps them out. This man is part of the resistance. And he takes them to like this underground area where the American people are ready to fight for their country back. But they don't trust the Sliders, even though they trust Wade. And the reason why they trust Wade is because she looks like the commanding officer. And the second in command's love her. And so when the dudes wake up, they explain what that world is about and how Russia took over and stuff. And so they mount a defense to get Wade, the other Wade, the double Wade, out the Russian stronghold. Now, this is the problem with Rembrandt. He tried to pay with American money for the cab dude. The cab dude saw this, freaked out, told the police. Rembrandt is now arrested. And when he's arrested, he's being interrogated by like this dude who's like a shiesty lawyer on TV. But in this world, he's not. And Rembrandt recognizes him as that shiesty lawyer and he exposes him. This pisses off the Russians and stuff, where they execute that dude off screen. And so Rembrandt, he's not, he getting an idea of what's going on, especially with all these people sounding Russian. And he tries to explain it to them that, he is not from this world. This dude created a timer. And when he has to explain it, he has to explain it in court. God, I forgot what this court show name used to be. It was like this daytime court show. And it's the actual dude from the daytime court show. And so, the People's Court, that's it. And so, yeah, he had to go to the People's Court. And Rembrandt is, the People Court dude judge, I don't know if he's still alive or not, but the dude was so funny in this. Him and Rembrandt are going back and forth. And Rembrandt's trying to like bribe him and stuff. And so that when in the Sliders, they see that on the news, not news, but on the TV, they have to now save the duplicate Wade and Rembrandt. So they mount a defense. And they realize that the professor is actually a high-ranking military officer for the Russians. So they have him pretend to be him. The professor does not want to do this whatsoever. And the professor kind of bombs at it. He's trying his best, but he bombs at it to where it alerts one of the military dudes, and the military dudes is Quinn's boss from the other world. And so he calls. No, 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 no. That's another episode. That is another episode. The dude that's suspicious, the guard dude, he's a dude that looks like Chekhov from Star Trek, the original series. And kind of sounds like him too. But he sounds more like the new Chekhov from the movie that sadly passed away. So he alerts high command and everything. And so the ruse is up. And they have to fight their ways out with these huge machine guns and like everything. And it's like a big old battle. But they are able to get the other Wade out and the other Rembrandt out. And so when they're getting Wade out, she gets shot. And Quinn thinks it's his Wade and everything. So he's crying, he's sobbing, he's confessing how like he cares for her and stuff like that. But then she shows up in the background, hey Quinn. And he realizes that, oh, that was the other way. So then he runs to his way. He gives her this big old hug, and like he tells her, "Don't look back," because he doesn't want her to see herself dead. And so after that, they have like a little like mourning section for the people that died in the battle, and then the sliders, they leave to go slide, but the phone company is still after them. And so they're running, they're chasing. That's that really cool fog scene from the intro that you see in my little header thing on the top, the border. And so they slide back home, and they assume once again that they're back home. And the reason why they always assume they're back home is because of Quinn's gate at his yard. It squeaks and everything. That's kind of like a dumb reason to think you're back home, because anybody can just oil it up. And so anyway, they're home, they're talking to Quinn's mother, they're having like, the professor's talking about like, oh, he wants to take a look under the hood of like the timer. It makes me think he's a little shady. And then he tells them straight up, don't tell nobody about this. We need to keep it to ourselves until like we perfect it, or probably just never use it again. We probably should just destroy it. Well, they don't destroy it, and thank God they didn't, because Quinn drops his wine glass when he sees somebody come through the front door. It's his dead father. That lets everybody know they are not back home. Now, other worlds that they travel to, I've already explained in my favorite and least favorite episodes of Sliders, where I go over the entire series and episodes and more in-depth in those episodes. But they do travel to a lot of bizarre different worlds, and they're all, for the most part, not good. There's a world where there's like a virus that is plaguing the world, and it's a result of like the government, not the government, but it's like medical facility creating the virus and spreading throughout the populace. There's an episode where it's like smart people are like the heroes of the world. They're like the athletes, they're like the famous people and stuff. And smart people are really praised on that world. Like I said before, there's a world where women are the higher class of humanity and men are like the lower class and stuff. There's an episode where Rembrandt is a huge star on this one world because his double faked his death, and Rembrandt is just loving the fame. And his twin brother in real life is playing his double. There's also an episode where there's a meteorite gonna hit the Earth, and the sliders don't slide until after the meteorite is gonna hit the Earth the next day. And so they have to figure a way to like destroy it. Now, one thing that does piss me off about the first season is that Wade doesn't do much of anything. Now, I mean, when I say she don't do much of anything, I mean she don't do much of nothing. It takes all the way into the third season for her to like really start do stuff, but then she's a damsel in distress type thing. But anyways, in the last episode of the first season, she does have a nice little story arc doing the whole luck is to draw the lottery thing. But sadly, towards the end of the episode, Quinn gets shot. And she's holding him, the blood's in her hand, and she just wails, and bam. It ends on a cliffhanger. And little to our surprise, we didn't know the show got canceled after the first season. This wouldn't be revealed until many years later when Jerry O'Connell, the guy who plays Quinn Mallory, revealed it. That, yeah, the show got canceled after the first season, but because of the reruns and people writing in letters, Fox decided to renew it for a second season. A longer second season, not that long, but a little bit longer. And then the show got canceled again in the third season, but then it got brought back for a fourth and fifth season on Sci-Fi, but Sci-Fi decided to cancel it in the fifth season after they ruined it. So that was my rundown of season 1. I had to re-upload it because like the audio was really bad, and the first time I did it, see what happened with the audio is this. I used a different camera back in the day. This was early 2000s and stuff. And so when I would save it, I would use Windows Movie Maker back in the day. And I would save it on the teeniest, tiniest file that they had just to save space on my computer and stuff. And on the little like teeny tiny flash drive and floppy disk thing that I had. You know, this was back in those floppy disk days. And I used to put it on a CD. That's why I put it on a CD. So yeah, I tried to save it at the teeny tiny. I could literally save like thousands of video files on like a CD disc and everything with that teeny tiny file I used to save it on. What I didn't know is that the audio would be screwed up. And I didn't realize that until I started rewatching my videos on like, you know, say my other channel that I have. I make animation stuff. And so then I started seeing some of you comment back in the day about the audio being bad, but y'all didn't really start commenting on it until a little bit later. And so by that time, I had a new camera, and Windows got rid of Movie Maker, and then they come up with a program called Photos, and now you only have 3 settings to set your thing. I'm glad they only have 3 settings, like a high setting, a medium, and a low one, because like knowing me, I probably went back to that teeny tiny file again. You know, if I didn't know that the audio was so screwed up. Because when I used to sometimes hear it in my videos, because I would always play my videos back to make sure like everything's edited correctly, I didn't hear no like distortion, not until I uploaded it online. So now I'm like, crap. Now all my animation videos from back in the day sound like crap. I don't really even make animation videos no more, because I really don't even make videos that much anymore. Because I've been doing this for like a really long time, like probably 10 years, and slightly over, but a little bit more longer than that, because my animation page, I've had that for like, my God, like a long time, back when I was in college and stuff. And I didn't start doing the whole sliding thing until I was out of college. But yeah, more videos to come, because I gotta start redoing all them other seasons. Alrighty, well, I shall talk to y'all later. Bye.